Okay, first of all, welcome everyone. Good morning. Depending on what materials you saw for this board committee meeting, you think we're either starting 15 minutes late or 15 minutes early. Most of the materials, including the website, said that we would start this committee meeting at 10 a.m. So we're starting a few minutes late. My apologies. And it certainly is not because the Long Island Railroad Metro North Committee meeting was running over, because they finished early. Thank you. But there was at least one piece of board materials and maybe others that said this meeting was starting at 10:30. So we have done a quick sort of look around the room and look around the table, and we think that we have almost everyone, if not everyone. And we will move to opening statements and start with the work of the committee. And I think even folks who thought that the meeting was starting at 10:30 will arrive and then realize they haven't missed that much. So we'll go ahead and we'll do a better job going forward of making sure all the times match up. So first of all, I want to welcome two new committee members to the Transit Committee. Robert Lynn, welcome, and Linda Lacewell, welcome. We're glad that you're a part of the committee, and we look forward to working with you. Thank you. So we'll start with a quick opening statement. I don't have too much this morning, but want to hit on a couple of things. First of all, in particular to those members of the public who are here and who are preparing to speak and who come on a regular basis, and even if you don't come on a regular basis. First of all, I want to let you know that we are considering making some changes to how we handle the public comment period, particularly in this committee. And the purpose of that is in order to accommodate all of you in what I believe will be a more efficient manner and a manner that is more respectful of your time. So you may remember that last month, which for some reason now feels like 6 months ago, last month the committee meetings ran very behind. And then our committee meeting ran behind. And then we had a lot of folks who wanted to make public comments. And so that started running behind. And we ended up in a place where a bunch of folks were worried about losing drivers, missing their ride, being late for other meetings, and it was becoming sort of a mess. And it made many of us on this committee and on the board generally realize we have to do a better job. And there's not a lot we can do when committee meetings that are dealing with important business run behind, or when 50 members of the public would like to be heard, because certainly they should be. We just have to do a better job of managing that and respecting people's time. And so, at some point, Chairman Foy had asked me for some recommendations on how to improve the committee and board process overall. And I have delivered to him a memo, and one of the recommendations that I have made, and of course it's up to Chairman Foy on whether he takes this recommendation, but my belief and from conversations with him is that he will, is that we will land on a time in this committee for people to make public comments. Which people will be able to plan around a little bit better. So, for example, if this meeting's going to start at 10, we will go to public comments at 10:30 or 10:40 or whatever, so that people know, even if the committee is running behind, public comments will start at a certain moment in time, giving us a few minutes here and there, because I think that will just give people a more of an appointment, and they understand when public comments are going to start, so they're not standing around or waiting around for 90 minutes thinking, do I have to change my whole day in order to have my voice heard? So more on that later, but I wanted to just let people know that we're thinking about that, and certainly happy to take your feedback on it, of course. But it's the best idea I've come up with so far that will keep things moving and be respectful of folks' time who take the time to show up and voice their opinion. So that's one item. Second item is that I wanted to talk about for a minute is this issue of serial criminal recidivists who are entering the transit system really in order to prey upon the public, members of the riding public, or our own workforce. This was This has been a news story that has popped up over the years. It's certainly been in the news recently, and then folks may remember that last month in this committee there was a back and forth between myself, President Byford, I believe Commissioner Schwartz and Commissioner Ferrer about what can we do to address this issue of folks who are literally entering our system in order to prey upon people who in a moving subway car or on a platform. There's been a lot of back and forth between the MTA, the New York legislature, the district attorney's office. Given the fact that the legislature has gone out for the year, we're in a place where basically nothing has been done this year, which has frustrated me and frustrated others. And so I think it's really important that this committee and board move forward with drawing a line in the sand and talking about the importance of making sure that we're protecting the public. And so one thing that we will do later in this committee meeting, probably during Chief Delatorre's piece of the meeting, is to talk about a proposed resolution that I have circulated to this committee that basically addresses this issue. We are not in a position right now where we can change a rule or implement a policy that is hard and fast and addresses this issue perfectly, but we can at least be stronger in our recommendations to DAs and to law enforcement. We can try to give the police more tools. We can address the legislature and tell them how important this is to us, because the reality is we've got folks who are literally using our system in order to prey upon people. I think those are, I guess the third thing I was going to say was to address the announcement about fare evasion that took place last week. I thought it was a very long time coming, good step in the right direction. It feels like a very comprehensive program. I know it's just a start. We've got a ways to go, but we discussed in this committee 2 months ago the importance of taking action quickly on fare evasion. I feel like the announcement last week did so. Perhaps there'll be some conversation today about the recent numbers, how that program will be implemented. I, for one, would like to see our cameras used, our cameras and stations used for this. I know that that's something that's been left out of the program for now in a piece, but I would like to see us capturing this behavior on camera and then posting it publicly. Whether we have our own YouTube channel or what, but I would like, that is important to me, because I think when people are publicly embarrassed by this kind of behavior, it helps address it. So with that, I will wrap up, and we can go to public comment. And let's see, are there any public speakers today?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. There are 9 members of the public registered to speak today.
Excellent.
For our public speakers, whom I'd like to remind that in the interest of time and fairness to all speakers, we limit everyone to 2 minutes. Please be aware of the clock in the front of the room and the warning light you will see reminding you that you have 30 seconds left to conclude your remarks. The first speaker is Robert Evans. The following speaker is Jean Ryan, followed by Murray Bowden. Robert Evans, please.
Okay, good morning. Good morning, members of the board. Good morning, public, everyone. My name is Robert Evans. I am a management and program analyst. I do numbers. So I was reading through the April edition of the paratransit report, and I noticed a few numbers that I had questions about regarding the e-hail and the cancellation of it. Some of the things that the report pointed out was that there was excessive usage of the service, which cited numbers of 103 trips per year for 2017 and 113 trips per person during 2018. I was wondering if anyone had taken into account the fact that the e-hail program just started in 2017, and it didn't start in January. So it's like all of a sudden people had a new, more flexible, more reliable service that they could utilize, and that could speak to the causation, which isn't anywhere illustrated in the report. As well as now we have another thing in the report that I saw was that it said that there was a 16% increase in the rides being taken during that particular year of 2018, when in actuality the numbers did not take into account the 2,956 new accessoride riders and the 340,000 plus trips that they've taken. Well, that's my time, so thank you, and please consider the causation, which is that when people have something that's more flexible and allows them to have a better quality of life, they're going to use it more. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jean Ryan, followed by Marie Bowden, followed by Zachary Borodkin.
Hi, I'm Jean Ryan. I'm president of Disabled in Action. I'd like to talk about apps, bus apps and my MTA apps. They really need fixing. First, my MTA app. It needs more funding to be improved as soon as possible. It's almost useless. Except for booking trips, we can book trips. The app measures distance as the crow flies. Access-Ride is not using helicopters. The vehicle icon is sideways, so it's hard to tell where the icon is headed, where the vehicle is headed. Who does that in any app, you know, that the car goes sideways? And the timing for when the vehicle will arrive is way off. It will say the vehicle will arrive in 14 minutes when it takes an hour. And I could see on the app that it's really far away, so there's no way, you know, I know the areas where I live and, you know, it's nowhere near. And it does this consistently, underestimating how much time it will take to arrive. And it's hard to tell how many stops the vehicle will make on the way to pick us up and on the way to our destination. And in our conversations when the app was being developed, that was one thing that everybody wanted. They wanted to know, when you know where the vehicle is, how many stops is it going to make until it gets to you? And once it picks you up, how many stops and where is it going to take you, you know, on your shared ride? And it's impossible to find that out now. And now I want to talk about the bus time issues, both for local and express buses. It's extremely inaccurate. You can't find buses, or it looks like there is one and then it falls off and no bus shows up, or a bus shows up and it's not on bus time, and that's for local and express buses. And it really affects people who can't use the subways and people who live in transportation deserts. And it really needs to be redone since it's from early 2011.
Please conclude your remarks.
Thank you. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. The next speaker is Marie Bowden, followed by Zachary Borodkin, followed by Jason Pinheiro.
Alex, I think you're doing a phenomenal job, and I think people need to recognize how many difficulties you have to overcome. The inertia of my generation to change is incredible, and you're doing everything as quickly and as well as could be expected. I want you to know that it's recognized, at least by me. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Zachary Borodkin, followed by Jason Pinheiro, followed by Saul Picker.
Good morning, members of the committee, President Byford, members of the public. My name is Zachary Borodkin. I am from Disability Rights New York. We are an organization that balances litigation and advocacy, and today that's why I'm here as an advocate. As you know, 25% of the stations across New York City are deemed as accessible, and I would like to know, while your capital plan has a lot of good ideas and there are a lot of additional monies going toward improving accessibility, I would like to know what some of those barriers to improving accessibility are and how my organization and our colleagues can help you reach some of your goals. So if you could please speak to that, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Jason Pinheiro, followed by Saul Picker, followed by Lisa Daglian.
Good morning on the Monday after my 33rd birthday. A couple of things that I want to address is that once again, I've been seeing, like I say, free for all on the S40 bus that goes from St. George Terminal to Matrix Park, Industrial Park, where Amazon warehouse is located at. I take this bus 4 times a week, round trip, at 5 in the morning and at 6 p.m. When I get out from work at 6 p.m., that bus, it gets so crowded, I don't even get a seat. And the worst thing of all is that I see co-workers that work in the same company as I do don't pay the fare. And Craig, please consider expanding the S90 Limited during the morning rush, because I saw that this route has been extended towards 11 p.m. I wonder when our subway tracks are going to be cleaned again. It has been a disgraceful decline on cleanliness on the tracks. Of course, lowering the accessory fare to $135 to equal the disabled and senior fares. And one last thing to Chief De La Torre, that I know that he pays attention to me a lot, is that in J Street Metro Tech, I've been seeing groups of 3 officers in a single spot. Why not having them spread out throughout the station? Because the last time I was in that station, I witnessed fare evasion and having 3 officers in the same spot. So that's all I have to say for this month.
Thank you. The next speaker is Saul Picker, followed by Lisa Daglian, followed by Kevin Zhang.
Board members and President Byford, I'm here to strongly condemn the proposed change in evening and late night service on the 3, 4, and 5 trains, which is being done to accommodate planned maintenance and construction work on the right-of-way. The past few years have seen the number of service changes spiral upwards. Dozens of GOs each night and weekend are now the norm, and they all start earlier than they did before. Even performance metrics have normalized poor off-peak service. OTP is as good as it is in those periods because schedules have been dramatically lengthened. These changes are reducing off-peak and weekend ridership, yet the agency is set to codify them, as it has done before on the 7 and G lines, without asking the critical question: could we be doing this work with less rider impacts? To this end, I suggest 3 changes. 1, flagging rules need to be changed. Adjacent track flagging requires trains passing work zones to slow to 10 miles per hour, which can as much as half capacity, while also allowing congestion to spread down the line more quickly and increasing service variability. Under Executive Order 168, a contract was awarded for the purchase of temporary track barriers, which would eliminate the need for flagging. I urge the board to follow up on this procurement and push for their use system-wide. 2, piggybacking work. Often the same GOs are done more than once for different projects. If a track is out on the Flushing line, for instance, CBTC work could be done on one stretch of the track and track work could be done on another. While sharing track access would require more coordination, it would reduce the number of repetitive track outages. It should not be the case that projects are delayed due to a lack of track access. This suggestion goes hand in hand with 3, more full shutdowns. A lot of productive time is lost setting up for GOs. Fully shutting down a portion of a line would minimize these losses and increase productivity. A weekend per month could be dedicated for a full shutdown on a line, and that time could be used to get as much work done as possible. Ripping the Band-Aid off, eliminating all service for one weekend is much better than feeling the pain of service running every 15-20 minutes at 10 miles per hour forever. NYCT can only come back to the board to justify cutting service this early after having made true strides to increase productivity. Maintenance work is needed for the subway action plan and to keep the system in a state of good repair, but needs to be balanced with service delivery. If nothing is done, off-peak subway ridership will continue its free fall as riders use other modes instead. Thank you. Shoal Picker.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lisa Daglian, who will be followed by Kevin Zhang.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Daglian. I'm the Executive Director of the Permanent Citizens Advisory Committee to the MTA. Welcome to the new members. Commissioner Feinberg, you mentioned some confusion about the start time of this meeting today. I might add that there was some confusion as well about the location of the briefing materials, since they were moved on the website from where I had previously had them bookmarked to a new place. So perhaps a link, or now everybody knows, hopefully. And perhaps moving the transit meeting to the first meeting of the day would also help to eliminate some of the confusion about time and some of the overages, so that there isn't rush to the rest of the meetings. I think that might be something to consider. We do appreciate that you recognize the importance of public input and hope that they will continue to inform your discussions and decisions. We also fully support your efforts to combat criminal activity and recidivism in the subway system, and actually throughout the entire system. So please let us know how PCAC can help. Subway performance continues to improve, and congratulations to everyone. We know that it's really on the part of the Subway Action Plan and Save Seconds, so we can feel the difference in our commute. And as many of you know, I ride the 7 train, and CBTC has made a very big difference in my commute. To everybody who comes after us, the pain is actually worth the gain. So thank you for that. And there was also some good news in the Big Ugly about the bus lane enforcement cameras. So we were very pleased to see that and look forward to their implementation. Less than great news, not in the Big Ugly, but we understand that Peter Caffiero is leaving. We think that's a big loss, and we hope that despite the freeze, his position will be filled because it really is a critical one. Little hodgepodge today, but thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Happy summer.
Thank you. The next speaker will be Kevin Zhang, followed by Finley Staub.
Hello, good morning to Sarah Finberg and Andy Byford. My name is Kevin Zhang. I want to mention about service change overnight early on the 3, 4, and 5 trains. 3 and 5 trains will be reduced and run overnight earlier because of Subway Action Plan and Fast Forward Plan construction only. 4 train will extend to New Lotz Avenue early overnight as well, when there is no 3 train service in Brooklyn. 3 train will terminate at Times Square, 42nd Street, and 5 train will terminate at East 180th Street early overnight, showing Subway Action Plan and Fast Forward Plan construction only. Thank you and have a nice day.
Thank you. Our final speaker will be Finley Staub.
Hi, good morning to the board. Hi, Andy. I miss seeing you at BusFest. I'd like to talk about Hudson Line electrification. I honestly think when I've been thinking in my mind about that line being electrified, I'm like, yes, it's finally being extended. I honestly, if that line is being extended, I think the Wasaic shuttle from Southeast to Wasaic can be electrified too. I really like to speak to someone about that. This morning I've seen the pictures at Garrison Station on the Poughkeepsie line. It's really horrible about the amount of neglect and how broken down the station is, and I think it's really a critical thought to be able to fix the station because it's really in dire need of repairs. Also, I like to talk about fare evasion, specifically at Atlantic Avenue Barclays Center Station. That's a big issue. A lot of the time when I've been coming home from class on the 4 and 5 line, I like to go to transfer on our line. And a lot of the time when I'm going there, I see the gate open, and that's a big issue because no one's really forcing any tickets on people who are going through the gates, and I really think that's a big issue to talk about. Thank you for letting me to speak this month, and I hope to see you next month too.
Thank you. Madam Chairwoman, that concludes the public speakers.
Okay, thank you so much. Thanks to our speakers. I would ask for a motion to approve the minutes from the May Transit and Bus Committee meeting. Is there a second? All in favor? Okay, approved. Are there any changes to the work plan?
There are no changes, Chair.
Okay. I'd like to turn the meeting over to President Byford for his report.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I have a slight cold, so do bear with me, please. What I will be doing this morning is combining both my report and also the one-year achievement report, accomplishment report that we were mandated to provide 1 year into Fast Forward. So if you recall, the Fast Forward plan was launched on May the 23rd of 2018. This meeting, the June meeting, looks back at the May data. So I think it's very timely that we should be taking a quick canter through what we have done as a team, as my team, to deliver against the very ambitious objectives set out within that Fast Forward plan, which is, if you recall, a very bold plan. It is a visionary plan. It is a plan that basically sets out what needs to be done over a period of initially 5, then a further 5, for a total of just 10 years to totally modernize New York City transit top to bottom. It is built around 4 key objectives. So what I thought I might do, Chair, to make this to flow better is to talk to this presentation in those 4 areas. So I'll just pull up the pictures. Okay, so and I've also circulated to board members this written summary of what I want to talk about today, and we will of course put this on the website so that members of the public can read what we've been up to. So the first area I'd like to talk about is that of subway, where, if you recall, the key challenge here is to improve the existing subway, to take immediate action to improve the subway day to day for around 5.7 million riders a day, but then also to plan for the longer term by re-signaling the subway. That is and was and remains the most transformative thing that we can do for the subway in this city. So that's been our approach to tackle both the initial improvements that needed to be made, things that could be done straight away, immediate tangible improvements for customers, while at the same time gearing up for the real big ticket items, the things that need to be done. So I'm not going to cover every single bullet point. I've furnished board members with the points, and you'll be able, members of the public, to read these at your leisure, but just a few highlights. So I think a lot of our improvement has been powered by an exponentially better understanding of root cause. Only a year ago, we were still having big discussions around a big amorphous lump known as overcrowding. It wasn't overcrowding. It was that we hadn't properly got to the bottom of what those that big chunk of delay incidents and delay minutes was. So we now have far better root cause analysis, and that has led us, enabled us, driven us, taken us to addressing those things that needed to be really addressed. And we've had huge success. The performance improvements, I think, speak for themselves. Sally will talk to the specifics for the month of May. But weekday major incidents are now at the lowest number per weekday since measurement began in 2015. And all of our customer-focused metrics are at near record levels of performance. That includes the numbers of weekday trains delayed, which decreased by 38.3% compared to last May. On-time performance, where we were in a hair's breadth of being now at 80% punctuality, 80%, where only a year ago, just over a year ago, we were languishing just under 60%. This is driven by both the Subway Action Plan and our Safe Seconds campaign, which I'll say more about in a second. Service delivery has reached a record high, service delivery being a proxy or a measure for the reliability of the service. Our fleet is performing better than it ever has. Subway performance mean distance between failure, an 11.8% improvement over where we were last year, thanks to the effort of our fabulous workers within our car shops and our suppliers, but particularly the frontline workers who are improving those cars as never before. And elevator availability, a key metric for people with mobility impairment or people with strollers or shopping, has reached its highest level since 2013. Running time improvements, and I'll move to the next slide. Running time improvements, actual peak running times in the A division, which is the numbered lines, have improved by around 4% year over year and around 2% year over year for the B division or the lettered lines. We established what we call the speed unit, which is made up of members of our frontline teams, our frontline operators, and our management teams, our service delivery teams, to identify wrongly calibrated signals, to identify speed restrictions that are no longer necessary. And we have progressively and relentlessly been safely designing those out. So to date, around 100 speed limits have been modified, and corrective maintenance has been undertaken on around 350 signal timers. And what I'm particularly pleased about is that we have done that in conjunction with the people that know best, namely the operators, the frontline operators, the people driving the trains. Who better than to tell us where we need to look? So that's a program we certainly intend to continue. That plus a much more of a move towards fix before failure rather than fix upon failure. So a preventative maintenance regime for fixing switches before they fail based upon historical data. And also a range of things behind the scenes to just get exponentially better at the processes we use, to be more organized, to be more data-driven, so that we can be sure that these improvements will endure. The second thing I'd like to talk about is the revitalization of our station experience. If I can just get the clicker to work. Whoops. God, these things are always so sensitive. Just 1 second. I'm sorry. What's going on here? Yeah, I seem to be going the wrong way. Just a second. Sorry, folks. I never have fun with clickers. Just a second. It's one thing I'm hopelessly incompetent at. Okay, so group station managers. I would like to first of all welcome, we have a number of our group station managers here today. We have our Chief Stations Officer. I'll shout them out. Perhaps you could just stand out and say good morning to everyone. Rochelle Glazer is the Chief Stations Officer. She has overseen the introduction from a standing start of a brand new station model, a model that is based upon a job I used to do in London, and one that introduces single point accountability to our station groupings. And we have 3 of our group station managers here today. They are Brenda Giori, Sandy Castillo, and Mike Brown. So 3 of our station managers. You can see Sandy's got his high-vis vest on. He's ready to roll. Rather than me talk to this, we're going to run a video now which shows what our group station managers have been up to in a very short time and the difference that they're making. Roll the video, please.
The average weekday ridership on our subway is nearly 5.5 million. Every single one of those trips ends and begins at a station. So it's really critical that the experience is a pleasant one for our customers. We started the GSM program last year to improve safety, cleanliness, and customer service in our stations. The cornerstone of this program was the creation of the Group Station Manager, a single person who is accountable for station conditions and who coordinates the many teams who work to keep stations safe, clean, and easy to use.
The Group Station Manager program is based upon a job that I used to do at the London Underground back in the early 1990s. I really felt that we needed that same attention to detail, a named accountable manager responsible for every aspect of customer service, of staff performance, and of station maintenance and cleanliness across the whole of the New York City subway.
Our customers know the stations better than anyone else, so we make sure it's easy for them to contact a GSM. Many of the improvements that the GSMs have made have come directly from customer feedback.
As a group station manager, we receive much feedback from the customers. Our contact information is posted in the stations and customers can reach out to us. I once had a customer reach out to me in regards to trash in his home station. He was noticing that people were placing trash on the platform. A simple fix was to move the trash cans closer to the turnstiles. Customers started using the trash receptacles, and his suggestion resulted in a cleaner station for us and all the customers that use that station.
What makes me proud about the job is that we have an immediate impact to the quality of service that we give our customers. We get to see that in the train when people recognize us. Of course, we love to get the compliments of the work that we've accomplished. And I also like to listen to the issues that our customers have.
One of the things that I enjoy the most about being a group station manager is the hands-on interactions that I have with the customers. I love helping tourists when they don't know where they're going, or the daily commuter who's frustrated with something in the station. My job is to make sure that their experience in my station is the best that it could be.
Customer service is one of the main goals for me. After I started as a station manager, one of the customer at 174th and 175th Street station, she was telling me that we need to install a mirror on the landings of the stairways. That way, when she go up on the stairway at midnight, she feels safer so she could see behind and front of the stairway. So I accommodated that, and she was very happy about it, and she sent me a thank you email regarding that.
I just think we're going to see bigger and better things. As we grow and as the group station managers grow with the neighborhood coordination officers, we're seeing a lot of improvement in our stations in general. We're seeing a lot of quick resolution to criminal behavior out there. We're able to apprehend people quicker than we were before because it is a much larger team effort. We are seeing a reduction within the transit system in assaults on transit workers, which I think is another big win. They're our family.
So one of the things with employees that we have done to improve the morale is that we're trying to get into the facility rooms and make them more comfortable, make them feel like it is a place where they want to come to work.
We want the accommodations to be nice for our employees. We do realize that we had some room for improvement in that area, and we've worked significantly to improve those accommodations.
I couldn't be more happy with how things have gone so far. I'm very proud of our GSM, and quite simply, big initiatives like the deep cleaning program we've done of our stations and also the L project couldn't have happened without the GSM structure. I would say so far so good. I'm really pleased with the way things have gone, and I look forward to seeing the program now mature and develop as we progressively deliver world-class service across our subway stations.
We've learned a lot in this year that's going to help us make even more progress more quickly. If you've got a suggestion for improving your station, please reach out to your GSM. We'd love to hear from you.
Okay, so that's our GSMs. As I said in the video, I'm very proud of them. They really are doing the two parts of the job that we asked them to do: improve the customer's experience, but also really focus on driving up morale with the employees and getting employees to do a great job because they want to do a good job and because they feel cherished and developed and supported in the work that they do. So thank you to my wonderful GSMs and their bosses, the district customer service managers. What else on Subway? Enabling the completion of more work faster. It was interesting, actually, that Sol mentioned the speed, impact of Subway Action Plan on service, but also the need for changes to flagging rules. Well, we're on the case with that. We have actually approved new track barriers to increase work protection and reduce impacts on service. and we're actively managing support services to get the most out of those geos. It is a balance, and I do get the point you were making. It really is a balance between a bit of pain now, but not so much pain that we make the service intolerable in the meantime. We will keep a close eye on that. Ultimately, if we get the work done now, then it will be better for the future. So a lot of our effort in this first year, folks, has been to improve basic service right now with demonstrable results. But in the meantime, we have been pushing on relentlessly, preparing for the rollout of new signaling. I would cite CBTC, Communications-Based Train Control. Have a look at what's happened on the 7. It was painful getting that system in. We will now be doing that differently going forward. Now we have Pete Tomlin on board. But look at the impact on that line. 43% increase in punctuality month over month. And you will see now that line stay in the high 90s or the mid to high 90s. I want to push that up. We've increased trains per hour from 25 to 29. That is the power of modern signalling, and we're now focused very much on Queens Boulevard and then Culver and then 8th Avenue Plus, rolling out a benign trial of ultra-wideband signalling in the fall. So lots happening in the subway space. Buses. Buses, we've been redesigning the network. As you know, we successfully redesigned the SIM network on Staten Island. We set targets for that. We set key performance indicators, including bus speeds, average journey time, and ridership. And the good news is ridership is stabilizing. People are coming back to the buses. Bus speeds are 10% faster and journey times are decreased. So if that is in any way an indication for what we're now doing, which is the Bronx, where we are in final design, and in Queens, which we've already started, that is good news for the future. And we will deliver on our promise to revisit and redesign with the public and with stakeholders every bus route within 3 years. We've added 7.2 miles of bus lanes with the DOT since the plan launched. So a lot is happening in terms of bus redesign. We've been working with DOT on bus priority features, adding traffic signal priorities to, again, get buses through crowded streets. 3 more routes have been equipped, which is over 100 intersections equipped. And we're putting together a master plan for buses, amalgamating our own bus action plan with the recently launched Better Bus Network, which the Mayor and his team put together. Working with PD, we have focused on particular corridors, and on those corridors achieved a 3% faster speed, 12 priority corridors in the AM peak. Invariably, it's not the whole route. Invariably, there are bottlenecks like the one outside here on the entrance to Hugh L. Carey. So by, again, relentlessly focusing on basics, we're driving up performance for our bus customers. And we've already prioritized 13 more routes for additional service management to continue that relentless push to drive up performance. We've been working on enhancing the bus fleet. Over 600 new buses have been delivered with all mod cons and all mod passenger features. Modern mass passenger features. We've been continuing our efforts to move to an all-electric fleet. It is our stated objective within Fast Forward to get to an all-electric fleet by 2040. And so the work we're doing at the moment to trial, for example, an all-electric articulated bus will prove invaluable, in fact, in that regard. And we continue to drive up the mean distance between failure of the bus fleet. You can see the stats in the board book, the committee book, and they speak for themselves. A huge uplift in MDBF, again, testament to the quality of the people that we've got working in our bus garages. The third element is that of accessibility. So, I'm sorry, there's a couple more slides there. Forgot those. I'm doing it again, sorry. I really am hopeless at this. Right, so let's just do a couple more things. Digital signage on both stations and buses is being enhanced, and there's some examples. I'll just go back to the previous one. I think these signs are great. They can clearly show information that previously would have been plastered all over the wall with bits of paper. So both on stations and on buses, we're progressively improving on-board information. So these are great. They've been well received by customers, and rightly so. Accessibility, and it was great, Murray. I appreciate that shout out for Alex and his team. They're fantastic. So don't forget, a year ago we didn't have an accessibility advisor. We didn't have a system-wide accessibility unit. We do now. We've got a world-class practitioner in Alexella Gudin, and we've got an excellent team who haven't wasted any time in really pushing on with prioritization of accessibility, the third equal priority of the Fast Forward plan. We have launched, and I was honoured to attend the whole meeting just last week. We've launched what's called ACTA, which is our advisory committee, with 18 committee members representing the whole spectrum of disability. It was a great meeting. I'd commend anyone to come along. I'd love board members to come along to one of those meetings. A truly collaborative partnership with people from across that accessibility spectrum, as I've said. We've been progressively training employees on accessibility features, including frontline operators, management staff, and soon to be launched, revised and revamped bus operator training and online training for all transit employees, including myself. Station accessibility, we now have a clear path forward in terms of the stations that are now to be done. We have identified, working with the community, the next 50 stations that we believe should be made accessible, part of a rock-solid commitment within the Fast Forward plan, the first 5 years, 50 stations made accessible. And that means that within that 5-year period, you will be no more than 2 stops from an accessible station. We would not have been able to make that declaration a year ago. There are 23 ADA station projects currently in design or construction. We've completed more than 240 high-level feasibility studies of existing stations to see what it will take to make them accessible in terms of cost and complexity. We've been looking at other cities and transportation sectors to get better at managing our existing elevator fleet, working with GSMs to keep the elevators clean, working with maintenance teams to keep them reliable and keep them in service. And the good news is that to date, system-wide average of elevators availability is just under 97% and improving. Working to make paratransit more responsive. We hear a lot about this at this meeting. We have launched the My AAR app, which is another example of transparency. We've taken action to make the no-show and late cancellation policies excuse me, more customer friendly. And we've been doing work also to improve communication with people with disabilities, looking at signage, looking at travel guides, we've launched an elevator dashboard with real-time information, and progressively upgrading accessibility features throughout the system. The fourth area of Fast Forward is one that I feel very strongly about. That is about taking your workforce with you, and it's about transforming the culture, and it's about transforming processes and upgrading systems to make us more efficient. So one of the key elements of Fast Forward is getting the right people into the right jobs in the right structure with the right mandate. That's why we've got people like Sarah Meyer as the Chief Customer Officer, why we've got Alexella Gudin as the Senior Advisor on accessibility, why I put Sarah and Frank in as the dream team running subways, and why we brought Pete Tomlin in as a world expert on signalling to deliver that part of the plan. But we have been really pushing to better engage with our employees. This is what we call Meet the Execs. This is me at Livonia train crew facility or station signal centre. I was there in the lunchroom answering questions to employees. And one of my first questions was, have you ever had the president in here before? The answer was no, never. And you often find that. We were at Charleston Depot on Friday afternoon. So we're doing a huge amount to upgrade facilities, to be less hierarchical, to engage the employees, to listen to them, to hear their ideas. You saw on the earlier GSM video a lactation pod. Well, that came from listening to employees. So we have a program called You Spoke, We Listened, where we listen to employees' suggestions. We'll be doing more of that on things like the SPEED program going forward. Safety, obviously a key, and these are 3 themes that run through Fast Forward. I'm nearly done. Safety is not an initiative, it's a theme. It's a theme, a thread that runs through the whole of our plan. So we've been revamping our safety and security training. We've launched a confidential safety hotline so that people feel able to flag concerns where they've got them with no retribution. And we've also launched with Chief Delatorre the neighbourhood community officers who work very closely with our frontline GSMs, which is a fantastic step forward. Keeping the system secure, we have been rolling out security features as we previously mentioned. We've been working with NYPD and agencies, city agencies, on tackling the very delicate subject of homeless people, vulnerable people who need better accommodation to be found such that we can keep our system safe and clean. And we've been doing work to improve the resiliency of our system in the face of flooding. Agility and accountability is the second of three themes that runs through Fast Forward, and this is all about huge effort to make ourselves more efficient, to upgrade systems, the time and attendance systems, to make better use of general orders, as we heard earlier, to improve the way that we go about procurement, to make ourselves more transparent, and to relentlessly find ways to cut bureaucracy, cut red tape, and do things in a more systematic and efficient manner. And then finally, customer. The customer angle, I think, is particularly important because here we have been, under Sarah's leadership, working on things like changing the way we put out service messages. No more good service where that description isn't warranted. We make it much more granular, much more specific. And of course, this all led from appointing Transit's first ever Chief Customer Officer. We're well on the way with Omni, our new smart card that has launched at 16 Lexington Line stations and on the whole of the Staten Island bus network. And so far, the take-up has been absolutely phenomenal. So we'll now spend the rest of this year and the next year to come fitting all of the stations, all of the buses on a roadmap to full rollout of Omni on all-door boarding and all the various other benefits that brings. We've launched a customer count survey. We've launched customer commitments. We've installed public address systems at stations that remarkably didn't even have them. We've undertaken huge amounts of outreach with customers. This was actually me on stage at the Lincoln Center talking to customers because the only way that we will really make Fast Forward work is if we engage New Yorkers consistent with the message that I said right at the start when it was first launched, Madam Chair, that this is worth it. The prize is worth it. It will take patience. It will take funding. It will take time. But this is the plan that will transform and modernize New York City Transit. Thanks to the governor's leadership, we now have the money on the horizon with business tolling. We're ready. As we go into year two, we're itching to get on with it. We want to now deliver year two, and I'll keep you posted as we progress.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go to some questions.
More, well, a comment and a question.
Sure.
Andy, every month the statistics keep getting stronger and better, and I want to continue to applaud the team and you for your efforts there. Secondly, I'd like to shout out the team here, particularly the legislative team, that worked so closely with Commissioner Trottenberg's team at City DOT to help pass the legislation for expanded use, actually unrestricted use to be more clear, of bus lane enforcement cameras, which will make a significant difference. That's been a source of, or an item of discussion for quite some time, many years on this board, where we've lamented the slow speeds and the blocked bus lanes and the limited enforcement with only 16 routes. So with many of the metrics that you shared here and the improvements, we just expect to see so much more of that moving forward. And then my question is, I'm glad that you spent some time talking about the fourth pillar of Fast Forward, which is engage and empower employees, because so much emphasis, understandably so, goes to buses and the subways and certainly accessibility. Can you talk a little bit more, put a little bit more fine-tuning on the transforming the culture and the processes that you highlighted, or noted, rather?
Sure, thank you. And just a reaction first up to your comment about buses. It's only going to get better because we now have this joined up thinking with the city, and because we will be progressively gaining from what we've been doing and the work the city's now doing. So again, I'd join you in saluting and thanking the legislature and the leadership that's been shown in having cameras and in now taking this matter seriously and getting existing bus lanes properly policed and new bus lanes rapidly rolled out. We can transform bus ridership in this city, and we're going to do that. So with people, I've always felt that it's anyone can design and build a new shiny new transit system with new equipment and new vehicles and stuff like that. But the real glue that holds it all together is the employees. And since the day I got here, I have been so impressed with the 50,000 men and women of transit who work away every day on what's often ancient equipment in the face of pretty relentless criticism, but just stick at it and are professionals who do the job properly. So we the management, our job, and I've been on this case since the day I got here, our job is to facilitate them, to back them, as long as they do the right thing, and they must, and same as me, we've all got to up our game. We should be backing them, cherishing them, developing them, supporting them. So I want to see a less hierarchical organization, and I see the reorganization as a golden opportunity to do that. I also want to see us embrace diversity more. So one of the points that I forgot to mention in my piece is we've established 9 employee groups. I chair the council that oversees those 9 employee groups. That covers the whole spectrum of our incredibly diverse workforce. So we've really engaged people in that. We're trying to create what we call a one-team culture. People come up to me on the subway and say, "You're doing a good job." And my stock response is always, "I have a great team. They are quality." These people work really hard. So we've introduced a transit university, which is a means of better formulating, delivering better training opportunities to people. I want employees to have the same opportunity to progress that a number of us have had in our careers. We have been, with these Meet the Execs, the idea, rather than have the meetings at 2 Broadway, we still have our meeting, but we have it out in the field. So we have the meeting and then we walk about a garage. We go and sit in the lunchroom. I've been holding what I call fast-forward dialogues, where it's actually quite hard for me. I sit and listen for an hour and keep my mouth shut, which is difficult, and listen to what the employees say. And so that they tell you, here are the things, President, we need to have changed. So it's a very powerful technique. And we're also really actively looking at the whole disciplinary process. I don't even like the term. It should be a performance management process whereby we more than ever differentiate between capability and conduct. In other words, if you make a mistake, I make mistakes. That's not a cardinal sin. We'll coach you, we'll help you. But if it's conduct, okay, we're all adults. You face, you will answer to the consequences of that issue. But that's very rare. Most of the staff are good as gold.
Thank you very much for that thorough discussion and explanation. And I was remiss in acknowledging 2 additional partners on the bus lane enforcement camera. One was Chairman Foy, who really put a lot of effort into making that legislation happen. And then secondly, to Chief Delatorre for your efforts to ramp up enforcement in towing vehicles that are blocking the bus lanes. I think that is also contributing to a lot of the improvements that we're seeing. And I think maybe the next threshold would be tackling some of the placard abuse that is being widely reported. But I did want to acknowledge and thank your team's efforts and your leadership. Thank you.
All right, let's go with Andrew and then Mr. Lynn.
I have 3 questions, Andy.
Okay, I will just say for 1 second that I want to be respectful with people's time because we had such an issue with this last month. So let's. I absolutely want to. Absolutely.
Again, echoing Veronica, kudos to the team for ratcheting up the on-time and performance metrics. On the issue of safe seconds, it's obvious that train operators, group station personnel, track workers are largely responsible for that speed up. Is anyone else involved in that particular program other than that group of workers?
I'll ask Sally to answer that, please. Thank you.
So one of the things that's made Safe Seconds so impactful on service is it really started as an internal communications campaign with all of our employees. We challenged all of our employees to think about ways that they could improve service, whether they work in a car maintenance facility, whether they work on the tracks, whether they operate a train, whether they work in an office like 2 Broadway. How can we all contribute toward performance improvement, even if it's in very small ways? The other thing that we did is we took it as an opportunity to share our performance and data about our performance with all of the employees in subways. So I talk here every month about our performance targets. Those translate down to line-based targets. They translate down to maintenance, discipline-based targets. We share those on a daily basis with our entire management team. We post them in crew facilities. We let folks know if they've made their target or not made their target. And on every single one of those communications, we ask people for their feedback. We have an email address where people can send their ideas and their feedback and their suggestions for things we can be doing, even if they're outside of their own discipline. And I think that the awareness of how individuals can contribute to an overall performance improvement, in addition to the information about how we're doing, and the inclusive nature of the campaign has led to improvements across every single discipline.
That gives a much wider idea. The second thing is you've made reference to, and we've heard in CPOC, among other committees, about installation of CBTC on the Queens Boulevard line, with the southern limits being 47th, 50th Street on Avenue of the Americas and 50th and 8th on the 8th Avenue line. If you have CBTC only up to those points, isn't the available benefit abbreviated considerably if you were able to run extra trains for a section, but then when it reached the non-CBT section, you'd have to run the normal complement of trains?
Well, we're now getting into the more difficult section period of CBTC rollout, because there's a reason why we did the L line many years before my time and the 7 first, because they're self-contained. And the challenge is with any signaling system having equipped and non-equipped trains working together. You really can't do that. Because we're interoperable, that's a huge benefit, but this is more complex. So we have a plan. We've worked out the linkages. We've got a science behind how we're doing Queens Boulevard line. We need to get enough equipped trains in order to be able to operate that. We've actually now equipped more trains than we need. So we're on the glide path to getting QBL done, at which point we'll then move to Culver, and then we're going to go to 8th Avenue. 8th Avenue will be done, that will be the first project that will be done under a new technique which Pete and I want to use, which is using what are called axle counters instead of track circuits. So we can take you through the technicalities of QBL later, but there's a science behind what we're doing.
Commissioner Lynn?
Yes, now in my 3rd hour as a board member, I'd just like to say how exciting I thought your presentation was. I've spent my whole career in labor relations learning to move from confrontation to collaborative, respectful approach with the workers. People have always said to me years back of how important it is to get input from line workers and how critical it is for management and labor to be making sure that their oars are all rowing in the same direction. So I really want to express my excitement for what you described. I would have to say that in my many years, one of the things I found most exciting was work done by Kaiser Permanente on the West Coast in healthcare, where labor and management sat down together, discussing metrics together, figuring out what metrics needed to be improved and how to change labor approaches in order to move those metrics. I think that what you're describing is really ripe for that type of approach, and I really look forward to working and assisting in trying to move that direction, because there is nothing more important than delivering what you've expressed you want to deliver than having labor and management working together to achieve those goals.
Okay. Commissioner Schwartz.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you for that presentation. Commissioner Feinberg, I just want to make a suggestion for you to consider. The Save Seconds is an important initiative. It's pretty complex. I had the opportunity a couple months ago, I think in April, to sit with Sally and some members of our team for at least 2 hours, going through all the various opportunities as well as challenges to speed up the trains and speed up the journey time. I think it'd be worthwhile. maybe in July, to have a separate just discussion on that, because there's issues such as signal calibration and what's involved with that, where the opportunities are. They're looking at curves and straightaways and other locations. There's other issues going on regarding braking and train design, as well as things involving the actual engineers themselves, among other things. So I think it'd be worthwhile if we can get if all the board members could hear a number of the initiatives. And I believe also that the consultants were also hired to work with Sally and her team. I don't know if it's WSP or some firm is working with the speed team on looking at ways of increasing speed on the various lines. I think it'd probably be helpful for the consultants as well as Sally and her team, and with Andy's lead, to come in and maybe just do a separate briefing on all the initiatives under Safe Seconds.
Understood.
Commissioner, I'm very happy to facilitate that. This is something that we've been working on since the fall of last year. So all of those issues are on our to-do list. At the end of the day, a railway is a network. It's a system. It's a system that all joins together. So you need to look at all the constituent parts. And the good news is we're well ahead of that, and we'll be happy to brief you.
Any other questions or comments?
Andy, on your presentation, on the group station manager portion, you showed one of the managers at Kingston Avenue Station on the 3 line. You showed the signage of that entrance. No mention of the 4 being the overnight service there. Are you looking at possibly having other signage to show, other than normal service, maybe with a dotted line around it or something, so that somebody entering the station wouldn't be waiting for a 3 at 2 or 3 in the morning?
Commissioner, I actually think there's a hell of a lot to do on signage. It hasn't really been looked at holistically for years. So yes, we are absolutely. We're also with the GSMs looking at upping our game on basics and making sure that things like that are attended to straight away. So we'll take a look at that, but we'll feed that into the more comprehensive review of signage that is long overdue. Thank you.
Sorry, next up is the customer service report. Just to reiterate, if folks can try to fly through this stuff quickly, if your presentation was in the board book, we have seen it, we have read it, we have digested it, because every member of this committee is very responsible about preparing for their committee meetings. So maybe highlight the stuff that either wasn't in the board book or that is particularly important. And with that, I'll turn the meeting over to Sally Librera for the subway report.
Good morning. I'll move through this quickly since Andy mentioned a fair number of these points in his opening remarks. As Andy mentioned, and I will repeat, weekday on-time performance again exceeded 79% for the month of May, compared to 66% 1 year ago. Trains delayed on weekdays improved 38% over the last year when we can look at May versus May. And that is the 10th month that in a row that we have met our delay reduction target. Weekday major incidents per day were the lowest since we started tracking that statistic in January of 2015. Of particular note, we only had 2 major track incidents in the month of May in 19, compared to 18 last May for track. And signal major incidents this year were 1/2 of what they were last May. Car MDBF, as Andy mentioned, reached nearly 136,000 miles. That's a 12% improvement from last year. And elevator availability reached its highest level since 2013 at 97.5%. All of our customer-focused metrics are at or near record levels of performance. Service delivered is at 97%. That's the highest we've seen that metric reach. Customer journey time performance matched 83.5%, which is the highest since August of 16. It was also the same as last April. Additional train time matched its record low of 53 seconds. That is a 35% improvement over 1 year, May to May. And it is very reflective of all of the efforts that are going into safely speeding customers' journey in the system. When we look at actual run times of our trains, we see actual run times have decreased significantly May of 19 versus May of 18, and that's across nearly every single line. The only line that we didn't see that improvement on is the N line, and that's because of the general order that moves it from the express to the local track on 4th Avenue this year. These statistics continue to show the results of the targeted investments of a subway action plan, Fast Forward, and Save Seconds. I'm very proud of the talented individuals in subways who work every day to deliver effective and safe service and to deliver improved customer service each day. We're proud of the progress we're making, and we know there's more to do, and we are 100% committed to continuing these improvements. This concludes my report.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Great. Okay, I want to turn the discussion over to Craig Cipriano for bus and paratransit report.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I'll just hit some of the key points in my script
Thank
today.
you.
So on July 1st, the MTA, in conjunction with our partners at New York City DOT and NYPD, will be launching our 19th SBS route on the M14, which will bring faster, more reliable service to the 27,000 daily riders on the M14 A and D. In regards to network redesign, we have made significant progress, and we continue to see the fruits of our work in regards to the Staten Island Express Bus redesign. And I'd like to share some of the May statistics that are in the book. Express Bus customer journey time performance improved by 21%, speeds were up 9%, additional bus stop time improved 35%, and additional travel time improved by over 3 minutes. We are continuing to use the lessons learned from our Staten Island Express Bus redesign in our ongoing efforts in the Bronx and Queens. To date, NYPD has issued almost 25,000 bus lane parking and moving violations, 60% more violations than the same period last year, and over 126,000 bus stop parking violations. And lastly, I'm excited to announce that this week, Staten Island Express Bus customers can expect the launch of the real-time seat availability information online and via the My MTA app. Moving on to paratransit, we continue to receive valuable customer feedback concerning the transition from advanced reservation e-hail to enhanced broker service. The new transportation rule recently announced by New York City Department of Transportation now allows primary accessorized vehicles to travel in dedicated bus lanes, which took effect May 30th. We are now testing on mobile data terminals in dedicated vehicles as part of a larger program to replace the outdated GPS, scheduling, and dispatch systems with new state-of-the-art equipment, which will be implemented in 2020. And lastly, we continue to replace our older dedicated vehicles with brand-new lift-equipped vans. To date, we have 346 in service, and we'll have 700 by the end of this year. This concludes the bus and paratransit report.
Thank you. Thanks, Craig. I want to have a quick conversation about enforcement. So you said enforcement is way up in terms of blocking bus lanes, correct?
Bus lanes and bus stops.
And can you give a quick report on where we are in terms of the forward-facing cameras on the buses that will capture and then eventually participate in the ticketing of those cars, so we don't always have to have officers out there?
Right. So this year we're piloting our onboard camera enforcement system on 3 routes. The first one, which will be the M14 SBS that I referenced in the report, and we expect to have that in August to be implemented. And then 2 other routes, the M15 as well as the B44 SBS in Brooklyn. In parallel with that, we currently have a request for information out to the vendor community to see what other vendors are out there to engage in a future procurement for the same system. And the third thing we're doing is we currently have 3,600 buses with a safety and security camera system, originally designed for safety and security. We're engaging that vendor to see if we could take advantage of the existing hardware and infrastructure on board the bus in regards to enforcing bus lanes across the city.
Because those safety and security cameras are probably inward-facing cameras.
So there is one forward-facing camera on board every bus that we're hoping to avail ourselves of, either that camera or something forward-facing. But there's other hardware infrastructure on the bus, namely cellular modems, GPS, that we're hoping to avail ourselves of.
Okay. And the 3 routes where we're doing this enforcement, you said one will start in August, and when will the other 2 start?
The other one is set for November, and then early of January of 2020.
Okay, can
The
we
third.
move the November and January up to either August or
So
September?
that absolutely is our hope. Right now, we're installing on the M14, and we're working with the vendor to see where we could ramp up installment. But our hope and plan, and I'll come back to this committee with an updated implementation plan.
Is it dependent on the vendor or is it dependent on us?
No, it's on the vendor.
So the vendor saying, I can't get this done till November or January on the other two routes?
Right. So currently, there's some challenges around the installation on the M14 that the vendor is working out. Once we have the implementation plan, the installment plan finalized, we will be looking to push the vendor to move those up.
Okay, will you include me in the conversations with the vendor so that I can just be added to the mix and push from my perspective?
Absolutely.
You and I have had many conversations about this. I think that we have to move as quickly as we possibly can because it literally allows us to be capturing video and then ticketing quickly in real time. And I understand not in real time, but capturing the video in real time so that we can then ticket, which will, I think, create a movement. I think people will pay attention to that and will notice when they get significantly large, expensive tickets for blocking a bus lane.
Yeah. To your point,
And it'll start addressing our problem.
Yeah, and to your point, the current system that we're putting on aboard our buses is a standalone system from the under-camera system that I referenced. So we're hoping to work with that original camera system so that we would then be able to roll out in a faster pace.
And I know that we have to give 60 days notice before we start actually ticketing, correct?
Yeah, right. We give 60 days notice. During that time period, we issue warnings.
Right. And we have started doing that since we're less than 60 days from August. We've started doing that on the M14 line.
No, currently the M14 it hasn't gone SBS just yet. So the plan is, and we're working in conjunction with the city, which will also have fixed point cameras, that in August the warning notices will start going out.
So the 60-day period starts in August?
Yes.
So we can't actually start ticketing until October?
Well, each individual car will get the warning. They won't get the fine just yet, but they'll know that that would potentially be a fine in 60 days. But they will not be fined until October, early November.
Okay. Are there rules about how we have to communicate with the rider, with the public about ticketing? So in other words, is it required, and you may not know this, and if you don't, someone else will, or someone else can get back to us, but on the 60-day clock, do we have to give warnings, official warnings, in that 60 days, or can we just start saying, there's an entire press corps who covers us, can we just start saying publicly, starting today, we will start ticketing you as soon as we possibly can in at least 60 days? Does that check the box on public notice?
So I can get back to you, but my current understanding is we'll be putting up signs all along M14 that says it's a camera-enforced route. Then Department of Finance, because all the tickets get promulgated through City Department of Finance, they'll start issuing the warnings first, and then eventually those warnings will become fines.
I get it, but what I'm saying is by saying to the public today, we are going to start ticketing as soon as we possibly can. We have to give you 60 days notice. What is today? June 24th.
Yeah.
Let's say August 24th, August 23rd, whatever. Somebody do the math. Okay. Will be 60 days. We will start ticketing then. Let's see if that checks the box.
Yep.
I'm happy to make public pronouncements. I'm sure other people on this board are happy to make public pronouncements, but speed matters here.
Yeah.
We got to move this along.
So, Chair, I entirely agree. I'm on the same page as you. Enough's enough. I want to see these bus lanes cleared, and we've now got the methodology or the technical capability to do it. So we will come back to you with a very, very aggressive time frame. I want to do it same as you.
Okay.
One question. Do we yet have this permission from the state to, after a number of blocking the box and getting fined, having your vehicle registration taken away? Is that part of the legislation?
Yes. We are currently working with the DMV to do that with respect to fare evasion. So we can certainly explore something like that for being in the bus lane repeatedly.
That would also apply to people who do not pay a fine. Anyone who scofflaw would be towed. So.
Any other questions or comments for Craig? Okay. I've lost track of where we are. Hold on. Oh, let's move to Alex in accessibility.
Great, thank you so much. As President Byford mentioned, last week we had our first meeting of our Accessibility Advisory Committee. It's really a great committee of 18 members. I really feel like it's a basic component. Many major transit systems have accessibility advisory committees, and we really look forward to working with this committee to gain their feedback, but also to help us make decisions. There will be lots of difficult decisions to be made on accessibility as we try to improve over the years, and it's a big step forward for us to have this unit. As I also mentioned, other transit systems, last month in partnership with the Transit Center, we held the first National Transit Accessibility Forum here in New York. It was an all-day workshop. We had 7 major transit agencies from across the U.S. here in New York working with us, sharing their ideas, sharing their principles of accessibility. What do they do better? What do we do better? We learned a ton, and some of those things we're going to be working to implement over the coming years. And we've also formed a relationship with all these transit agencies where we're communicating monthly about what are the hot button issues and what are the best practices for accessibility going forward. So we're super excited about that new relationship as well. Since I started less than a year ago, we have done more than 24, almost 36 ride-alongs with passengers with disabilities, looking at different things in our system, such as tactile edges, accessibility of our customer information screens, and other things. And we continue to gain, gather this feedback to put it all together to create a comprehensive plan. And one thing that we've done is we've recently launched an accessibility contact page right on our new MTA website that allows customers to reach us directly instead of going through the formal channels of 511 with everyone else. We know that sometimes issues of accessibility and disability specific, whether it's complaints or feedback, really need to get to us faster for us to address them. So you can find that accessibility contact page there. And last but not least, I want to mention that July upcoming is Disability Awareness and Pride Month. We're super excited about that. We marched in the Disability Pride Parade last year for the first time as an agency. We'll be doing it again this year, and we hope to have even a larger contingent. And we'll have some cool new initiatives and trainings and other things to raise awareness throughout the agency during this month. And we're really, lastly, just want to say, looking forward to the second year of Fast Forward. From a sense of we've done a lot of work in our first year to kind of build some foundations and some basic principles without the agency, but some of the, specifically on accessibility, some of the new features and things that we've been working very diligently on will be hitting our system this year, and we're super excited to showcase that. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. One comment for you, Alex. You and I had a back and forth this week by email about the 30-minute metric on-time performance, not on-time performance, but a ride being considered on time. So first of all, you got back to me with a super detailed response, which was very helpful, and I haven't had a chance to respond to you yet, so thank you very much for that. But going forward, I would like for us to work together on how we can improve that metric, because a 30-minute metric, a metric that says that as long as your accessor ride shows up within 30 minutes, it's considered on time, doesn't work. And I know you believe that too. So let's work together on it. And maybe it can be a topic for the board meeting next month.
Absolutely. I think, especially with the new modernized dispatching system coming later this year, and some of the new GPS technology that we have coming on, being able to have proper metrics so it can actually see the improvements that system makes, and as well to potentially fine-tune things to more narrow when it needs to be and more wide when it needs to be. Super excited. Thank you.
Perfect. Other comments or questions on accessibility? If not, okay, let's move to strategy. I cut out there. Strategy and customer experience report, Sarah Meyer.
Great. Hi, everyone. So in an effort to further improve communications, SCE made significant changes to the service status information on the website, officially retiring the term service changes, which we felt were vague, and replaced it with more specific terms reflecting what customers actually are seeing and feeling in the system. We also launched a new anti-fare evasion communications campaign with assets that are now live on the subways and the buses. Floor decals and other communications materials will be rolling out over the coming month. June is also World Pride Month. We're very proudly celebrating New York City and its wonderful diversity. Working with operations planning, subways and buses, we have an adjusted schedule on June 30th to accommodate the increased number of people using the system. We're going to increase service on the 1 and the C lines, and we'll also be running the W service as well to help accommodate the crowds. I do want to note that 14th Street will be particularly impacted as the parade cuts through 14th Street twice this year. So we will have staff on the street in our subway stations to ensure that we're doing the best we can to move crowds. Also, you can visit, we've created a special web page for that day, new.mta.info/Pride2019, which will keep updated. There are a number of bus routes that will also be impacted that hit 14th Street, so you'll see a full accounting of all of those routes. We also released 2 commemorative Metro cards that are available at select subway stations, and produced a custom designed Pride logo that can be seen on the number 1 trains. The Transit Museum and its merchandise partners used the logo to produce t-shirts, magnets, bandanas, and all proceeds go to the Transit Museum for their educational programs. Also happy to report the continuing enthusiasm for our Bronx bus redesign and Queens bus redesign programs. We are in the Bronx this week, next week, to go over the draft plan, which we are encouraging our customers to give us feedback on. It is not final, so looking for your feedback so we can make sure that it takes care of what our customers are looking for and increase travel times. We've also launched an online survey for the Queens bus redesign. We've received over 700 responses to date, but need more. So please visit new.mta.info/Queens bus redesign if you're a Queens bus rider, and make sure that you fill that out. We're also engaging with more than 16 civic associations in Queens to make sure that that survey is distributed appropriately. So that's it for this month. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Jones.
Yeah, I know you spoke of signage warning people about fare evasion. I've seen some signs saying, alerting people that the Fair Fares program is available. The next big rollout is actually going to target CUNY students in October and NYCHA. It just so happens, as I go through, CUNY has a listing of all the subway stations that are the main access points to the various colleges in CUNY. I think if you start adding that opportunity and referring to the city program, so CUNY students can start knowing that they have access to this program, again, as a targeted way to stop fare evasion.
Happy to do that. Thank you for that notice.
Dr. Metzger?
I'd like to give a hats off to Andy and his amazing management staff and all the men and women of the Transit Authority. When you came to us a year ago, we were hopeful, but reserved judgment. And I have to say that I've seen you make huge changes and huge strides, and I'm looking forward to it continuing. The enthusiasm I hear from the management is reflected in some of the people that I talk to on the platforms, and it's a wonderful thing. I have to also say that I heard one of the station group managers say that they love their job. I actually heard that in the railroad meeting earlier today, and boy, that's something that I think we need to continue, because if we all love our job, then we're doing right for our customers. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, let's move to the safety report.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Included in this month's report are photos of the Office of System Safety's Employee Appreciation Ceremony, which was held on May 31st of this year. The ceremony is not only in line with one of the principles set by President Byford in the Fast Forward Plan, but it was truly an opportunity to appreciate and say thank you to the men and women who are tasked with overseeing the safety of both our 50,000 employees and over 8 million riders a day. As for our safety statistics, subway customer accidents have shown a decrease when comparing them between consecutive 12-month periods. Subway fires, again, declined by 20% when comparing the most recent 12-month rolling period to the previous, with significant decreases in right-of-way debris fires. Bus collisions and collision injuries have shown a decrease. However, bus customer accidents continue to show an increase. The Bus Operations Training Unit continues to evaluate these trends and have recently delivered a new customer and bus movement safety poster to all bus depots. The poster highlights the most recent accidental trends involving boarding and alighting in bus stops and encourage operators to remain vigilant. Additionally, a smooth operator video was created as part of the mitigation strategy that focuses on customer and overall safety while leaving a bus stop. Employee lost time accidents have shown a slight decrease when comparing them between the 12-month period. And lastly, we are making steady progress on our leading indicator goals. And with that is the safety report.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Yes, Commissioner Albert.
Hi. Maybe last year or for a few months, we got a breakdown of the fires, the causes, whether they were electrical or trash or refuse or whatever. Can we start getting those again?
You sure can.
Thanks.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I'm going to move to Chief Delatorre.
Good morning, everyone. Year-to-date, total major felonies in transit are down 2.3%, with 22 fewer felony crimes than the same period last year. There were 23 additional felony assaults, 5 fewer robberies, 42 fewer grand larcenies, equaling a 6.7% decline in these felony thefts. During the month of May, transit crime declined 7%, with 15 fewer major felonies. During the month, there were 6 more felony assaults, 6 fewer robberies, and 15 fewer grand larcenies than May of last year. During the month of May, 32% of the total major felonies occurred in Manhattan, 33% in Brooklyn, 23% in the Bronx, and 12% in Queens. I'll just provide an update on a couple of recent events, including the troubling series of incidents in Brooklyn where an individual intentionally endangered riders and transit employees by placing items in the track area. Thanks to some great work by the 8A Precinct Domestic Violence Officer and our Brooklyn Transit Robbery Squad, I am pleased to report that on June 18th, we arrested a juvenile in this case. We are currently working with the Corporation Counsel to appropriately prosecute the teen and prevent this from happening again. We've also made an arrest in a recent assault against a New York City Transit train operator. After receiving a tip from the public, our investigators identified the suspect as 45-year-old Mike Ortiz. He was arrested on June 18th and is currently in custody awaiting his next court date. With that, I thank you and I welcome any questions or suggestions you may have.
Thanks, Chief. Commissioner Schwartz.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Feinberg. I think in listening to all the statistics that we've heard today, it's all very positive news. And I've been a huge proponent of performance metrics and basically comstatting the performance of the MTA. And one of the things I'd like to work with you on, and Commissioner Metzko co-chairs the Metro North Long Island Railroad with Commissioner Law, is I think it would be also helpful. All these statistics are great. The news is great. It's trending in the right directions. But we should also understand and figure out what perfection is at the end, or what is the best case scenario, whether it's on-time performance, major incidents, minor incidents, crime issues, you know, whether it takes a year, 2 years, 3 years, you know, where do we end up where we know we're doing as well as we can be and we should be doing. Just like anything else, you know, when you listen to crime statistics with the NYPD or any other thing, you know when you're at like the best level that you can achieve. You're not going to stop everything, and things are always going to happen, but where we can get to where we're seen as an agency best in case, best in whatever you want to describe it. So I would love to work with you to figure out what the end game strategy is with all our statistics. Thank you.
I think that's a great suggestion. I was actually going to ask the chief a few questions about the data, but I think rather than take time to do that now, we can reconvene, have a smaller committee that talks about it and looks at it, because I think you're exactly right, and I don't think we can figure out where we're supposed to land until we understand clearly what the data actually tells us. So, Chief, we'll come back to you on that. Hopefully we can set up a meeting and set up some time to discuss it further. I want to turn to recidivism. Are there any other comments or questions before I turn to that? Okay. So I circulated to this committee and to many members of the senior staff and the MTA management a draft motion to address this issue of criminal recidivists who enter the system and are basically using the system to prey upon the riding public and or MTA workers. And Chief, first I want to turn to you, and maybe you want to give a quick overview of some of the problems that we're seeing, and feel free to address whether you think this is a step in the right direction and what else we should be looking at.
Yes, I read the board resolution, the proposed resolution. I think it's a great step in the right direction, and I want to thank everybody on the board for their support in this area. And I'm just going to go into a couple of cases so everybody understands exactly what we're talking about here. I'm going to start with a fellow, I'm going to call him Mr. G. And no, he's not a weatherman, right? So Mr. G, going back in 2018, was arrested on January 18th for victimizing two people attempting to take their property. He was then arrested again in April of 2018. This time he took property. He was arrested again on October 22nd, again for attempting to take property. Now, there were various outcomes in these. On the first one, he got bail. On the second one, he pled guilty. On the third one, he was ROR'd, no bail. He was arrested again on October 25th for attempting to take property from an 86-year-old. On that one, bail was set. Now, this is just one man. And this is only the times that our officers actually were able to witness this and apprehend him. Because, again, we watch for behavior. These predators, they behave in a certain way, and our officers are trained professionals to look for this behavior. And aside from that, if they've arrested Mr. G before, they're going to recognize him anyway when he comes back in the system, quite often. Then again, on March 14th, Mr. G victimized a 30-year-old woman. This time, he not only searched her for property, but he also sexually offended her as well. Mr. G is a level 3 sex offender, so he does both. And you ask yourself, well, when is he going to stop? Well, Mr. G is over 70 years old. And he's been arrested 27 times, 24 times in transit. Many of the times he's been arrested, there's been more than one victim. Now I'm going to go to Mr. F. Again, Mr. F now, arrested in 2018. In September, Mr. F is 6'3". He stands over his victims with a razor in his teeth. He pats them down, looks for property, then cuts open their pants and takes it. Again, the officers observe him doing this most of the time, and that's how we make these apprehensions. So he's arrested in September for cutting pockets. He's then arrested again in November for, again, a sleeping passenger cutting pockets. He's arrested again in November 17th. So the first one was November 4th, second time November 17th. This time he's going through passengers' pockets. He doesn't get property, but we observe him doing it. We arrest him. He's then arrested again for cutting a passenger's pockets on December 17th. And finally, with that, he's held and he served some time. He recently got out of jail. So this is just a couple. The officers who are trained to do this not only look for those who victimize sleeping passengers, they look for certain behavior, but they also look for our sex offenders, and we've gotten over 100 sex offenders this year as well. The sex offender acts in the very same way. Often we recognize them from past arrests, but again, we look at behavior. It's very telling when someone stands at a station and watches trains go by until they can find their mark or who they're going to victimize. The troubling part of all of this is in all these cases, there is no case until there is a victim. So the officers have to stand there and watch a young girl get victimized in order to make an arrest, in order to get the criminal justice system to start the wheels rolling and get something going with this person. By the way, Mr. F has 65 priors. 65 priors, and he's also nearing the age of Social Security. These are people who've made a career out of victimizing our ridership, and I really applaud the first step here that you're taking in this. Thank you.
Chief, thank you. So just to be clear, you did a great job of explaining that. But just to be clear, I think Mr. F has 65 arrests.
Correct.
Okay, so that's 65 times when your excellent officers have noticed him come into the system, either followed him or been able to contact plainclothes police officers, because I'm assuming he's not stupid enough to do this in front of uniformed police officers.
Yeah, so almost always we have to use plainclothes officers. Also, no, we haven't arrested him in transit 65 times. He's been arrested topside and in transit a total of 65 times.
Got it, okay. My point, though, is that your officers have to notice him entering the system or have a report from a station manager he's entering the system, follow him, or get plainclothes officers to follow him, watch him target someone, and watch him at least, begin the process of robbing or assaulting someone so that they can step in. So, in your experience, if you've been arrested 24 times for that kind of behavior, how many times have you likely actually exhibited that behavior?
I couldn't guess. I mean, I would say, how many times do we catch somebody out of the amount of times they do it? It could be 10 times more. It could be 20 times more. Fortunately for us, as they continue to do it in transit, it's such a contained environment that we catch them probably quicker than they would up on the street because the street has so much more space. But there's no doubt that when they come in, they come out probably just about every night. As soon as they get out of jail, we start looking for them because we expect them, we expect their arrival to be imminent. And we start looking for victims right away and then try to attach their behavior to those victims to see if they're the ones working on those victims.
Yeah, I find this appalling. And additionally, this kind of behavior is not okay anywhere, obviously. But this is why we have to start treating the transit system differently. Because when you are stuck on a moving rail car with someone who is attacking you, assaulting you, robbing you, there is nowhere to go, right? You are stuck for 20, 40, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, 2 minutes. And there's no escape. And these guys obviously know that. And so we have to start treating this stuff differently. Questions and comments? Commissioner Jones, and then we'll go Commissioner Albert.
On this one, I'm going to have to abstain, not because I don't agree with the overall premise of it. We do a lot of work at my agency on the issue of trying to make sure that felons who correct their behavior are not penalized. I'm worried about overbreadth here. I absolutely agree. My daughter rides the subway, my wife rides the subway, and we're terrified of this kind of behavior. But the difficulty is, unless we characterize this extraordinarily narrowly, we're going to end up sweeping in people and make it almost certain that they're going to have to return to the life of crime because they won't have any transportation options. The issue of also how we're going to identify the individual and ban them raises questions about how you'd go about doing that. But secondly, I think it raises constitutional questions. You can't interfere with transportation in between states. Theoretically, it also applies interstate. So I want us to be very careful. I'm not voting against it, but we have to be very careful that we narrowly define what we're doing here so we don't end up penalizing somebody who makes a mistake who's not serial, but then you have them banned for the system for years, which means that they basically can never work at all if they decide to go straight, or whatever we're calling it. So I just urge a great deal of caution in this particular area.
Understood, Commissioner, and I don't know if you've had a chance. I just circulated it yesterday, so I don't know if you've had a chance to read the resolution.
Yeah.
But I attempted to write it in a careful manner, and then had David Farber, who's the General Counsel for Transit, take a look at it. Look, I'm not a lawyer. I come from a family of lawyers, so I'm well aware that I'm not a lawyer. I'm like reminded of that all the time, and I won't try to act like one. But here's the reality. This is not we are probably not the right entity to be setting up these rules and regulations anyway. The reality is we are where we are because the legislature has not taken action, because the district attorneys are saying, you know, the MTA should really act on this. We are in no position, nor should we be, to set up our own judicial system. And so what I think we need is for the legislature to take action and for judges to start deciding that this is a potential punishment or discipline for these kinds of offenses. I completely agree with you. We do not want to end up banning, you know, someone who has reformed themselves or a kid who makes a mistake from the system for making a mistake. That's why I'm trying very hard to target this at literally people who appear to be using our transit system to target children, women, vulnerable, sleeping, whatever. But I take all of your points.
Yeah, and if I might add, I do see your points very well too, Commissioner. And I think as a group, as we move forward working together, all of those points need to be considered. Just like drunk driving, we don't stop you from driving forever, but we do stop you from driving until you go and get help. So some of these people need a lot of help. And if they can come back and show that they got the help, I have no problem with them coming back in the system, nor do I have a problem with them getting a restricted use Metro card to go to work. But I do think that that something needs to be done, and I do appreciate the resolution put before the board, because this is not an outcome. This is simply a commitment to go forward and do something about it.
Commissioner Schwartz.
Yeah, first, let me thank you for spearheading this, and for the governor and his office people and everybody else that worked on this and have been involved with this. It's much appreciated, and it's a great first step to continuing to enhance safety. The other thing I just want to mention, again, working with you and all my fellow board members and Patrick and the NYPD and everybody else, we were told we're going to receive the next five-year capital program in September. And one of the things, and I've talked with President Byford briefly about it over the phone and some other people, is one of the things I want to explore is making sure that at all our subway stations and other MTA locations that we have cameras throughout those stations. Here in New York City, when you walk on the streets in New York City, there are cameras everywhere. I don't know where they are, but I know they're there. And to me, it's not a privacy issue. It's a safety issue. We have the greatest police department in the world here in New York City. We're also, if not the safest city in the world, we certainly are one of the top 2 or 3. And while it's about great policing, it's also, I believe, those cameras create a deterrent. And also those cameras help our police, our law enforcement, find people and catch them. And I think one of the things I believe that would be helpful, but I want to get the input of the experts, is to have cameras throughout all our subway stations and every other location and our commuter rail stations. So we can't have police officers at every place all the time. But those cameras act as a deterrent. And from my perspective, whether it's somebody throwing a shovel on a track that I read about and causing major delays, or assaulting somebody, robbing somebody, whatever it is, I want everyone to know that they are being watched. To me, this is not a privacy issue, it's a safety issue. So let them think they're being watched, and let the public, the ridership, know that they can feel hopefully safer at each one of these locations, because and let it become a deterrent that people know that they're going to be on camera And if they do something that is either stupid or illegal in nature, that there's a very good chance they'll be caught on camera and they'll be prosecuted for that incident. So I look forward to working with everyone here on the board to make sure that when we have to vote on the next capital program, that there's funding to put this safety initiative in place. But again, thank you for spearheading this, and thank you for the work of everybody that worked on this resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree 100% on the cameras. Commissioner Albert and then Commissioner Lynn.
I also agree with Commissioner Schwartz and was going to ask, do we have the right to do facial recognition cameras as of this time?
Don't know.
I don't know the answer to that at the moment, but I'll definitely research it.
Having only seen this now for about 60 minutes, I do subscribe, though, to the importance of the issue. I must admit my initial reactions were very similar to Commissioner Jones's reaction at the time, that it raises concerns that I'd want to think about. So my sense is, from my own vantage point, I guess I would have to abstain as well, unless there's more time to think about it and discuss it with people I report to.
Fair enough. I did not know you were joining our committee until I walked in this morning. So welcome, or I would have circulated to you earlier. You can certainly abstain today. My guess is that this will also come up on Wednesday.
Commissioner, if I might add one more point just for everyone's. We have researched the banning policy or exclusion policy, and it does appear to exist in just about every other major transit system in the country in one form or another. So, okay.
I've been living with this for longer than a minute, and I've heard these stories forever. I think it's good to say them publicly. We had one example in the Railroad Committee earlier today as well. People should not be afraid to use our subways. I use them all the time, and I sometimes terrify my suburban friends, but if I'm not going to use it, who will? I agree with the camera issue. I understand David's concerns. He and I have had discussions about the various concerns that do come about from this kind of an issue, but this is just a beginning, and just passing a resolution won't make it happen. We need to understand things better. We need to contribute to the ideas that would help us out, but to have somebody come into the system repeatedly and terrify people is unacceptable, just unacceptable. This might be new for us, but it's not new for other transit organizations. We could study them, figure out how that happened, talk more about the cameras, get budget to do this, but we have to take control. This is such a feeling of helplessness when you hear these stories. It's unacceptable.
Commissioner Schwartz, and then
Yeah, just a question. Is it your assumption that when we vote on this, then it'll come Wednesday before the full board? So to Commissioner Lynn, just as, you know, I'm not trying to talk you out of abstaining, but I just want you to be aware, because you're our new member, that we're just voting to bring it to the full board for a vote. So I don't know whether or not having the additional time, just supporting it coming out of committee, allows you to make a decision between now and Wednesday on what your final decision is. So I just want to put that on.
Thank you.
Okay.
President Byford.
If I might just make one real quick comment, just from perspective, and I'd say straight up, I absolutely support Commissioner Schwartz's objective of having cameras everywhere, and also in support of Dr. Metzger. There's so many advantages. There really are. I mean, my background, as you saw from the video earlier, is London Underground. Back in the day when I was a foreman, there were no cameras. You were flying blind. But now there are cameras everywhere. So there are so many advantages, not only in public safety, which is of course number one, but also in actually running a station. I can't believe we don't have a control room at somewhere like Grand Central. We're working on that. I've got my team having a look at it, because to actually run a station, you need eyes and ears. So it's something that I'm very keen to work with you on. I salute, Chair, your leadership on this piece. We need to get to a really truly controlled environment in which everyone's welcome, but you've got to adhere to certain levels of behavior.
Mr. Vanderpool.
I strongly support this resolution, but the reservations of my colleagues does give me a little bit pause. So my question, Madam Chair, is there another option to be considered where addressing some of the concerns raised by Commissioner Jones and Lynn in this with maybe some additional language prior to our vote on Wednesday? Is that an option? Because I think this is important to move forward, but as you've rightly noted, there's no imminent action that is going to happen until the legislature reconvenes in January of 2020. So is there an opportunity to perhaps address their reservations and then vote on this on Wednesday?
I mean, look, you are, by all means, you should feel free to draft language and suggest it. I guess I would need, I don't know what the rule is on if we vote for to move something today, if we have to edit it later, what that would mean. But look, this is where I am. I've tried to write it in a way that makes, you'll notice that the resolution does not say ban for life. It doesn't say ban for any criminal activity. I tried to write it in a narrow way. My priority here is moving forward. I just want to execute. I don't want to talk it to death. I want to give Chief Delatorre what he needs. I want to make a really clear statement that this committee isn't going to put up with this, and the board's not going to put up with this, and we're going to do whatever we can to address it and do our jobs on this piece. Commissioner Jones, do you want this gig?
It's interesting. I agree with your point about cameras. I'm fully supportive of that. I think it's a great idea. And what I'll promise to do is, it's been a long time since I took constitutional law, so long that it's scary. But I'll run it by some of my people in the legal services area to get their advice as to what might clarify this and make it a stronger statement that wouldn't necessarily hurt people who you don't want to stop from reforming. So it's not what you're talking about. You've got people who are really sick here, obviously, and that's a different problem almost. So I'll do some due diligence as well.
I want to be really clear. What we're saying here is that it is the sense of the board that we should be doing this. It is not a rule. It's not a regulation. We're not implementing anything. I wish we could. We can't. Doesn't make sense. But if we're going to do that, I think that's fine. Please make sure that you coordinate closely with David Farber, who helped me draft this language and who has spent many, weeks, months, decades, tears, sweat, working through this. And David, you may want to comment here.
Yes, Commissioner Jones, we've also looked at the constitutional issues regarding transportation. That's one of the reasons that we believe that we need legislation. It's not something that we could do on our own. I'm happy to work through those issues with you and your organization.
I just would like to remind my fellow board members that we're not talking only about assaults on riders, but we're talking about criminal actions such as the lunatic that was throwing things down on the track bed of 4th Avenue line in Brooklyn, which could have caused a derailment and injury to folks as well. So there's all kinds of issues involved, why we need cameras.
I sense a real consensus of everyone here that this is behavior that is abhorrent, and we need to do something about it. I'm also supportive of cameras as I think an excellent idea in a direction. And I'm used to seeing them everywhere in London, in the London Underground, and make sense here too. This is only, I think, a question of how best to fine-tune the position and how best to do it. And so my sense was only having seen it at this moment, I still would like a little more time to think about it.
Absolutely. Okay, any other questions or comments? Commissioner Lacewell.
Is that on?
You're on. Go for it.
Thank you. Sarah, I'd just like to thank you for taking this on and in a careful manner. Just a couple of points that I would like to add to the very helpful discussion. Number one, we're talking about a situation in which individuals have been convicted on numerous occasions. And as you do your constitutional analysis, I think that's very important. Second, cameras, of course, are very helpful, but I don't think that law enforcement should have to take on the burden of following somebody 50, 60 times when those energies could be devoted to other law enforcement matters. I'm a former federal prosecutor. If you need any help at all, I'm there for you, whatever you need. And look, I think if you ask your friends and family members, you're probably going to find people who have been victims of situations in the subway. I personally was the victim of a misdemeanor sexually oriented offense. And the undercover officers and law enforcement were tremendous. But if someone has been convicted multiple times, why do we need to go through that again? Let's prevent the problem from happening in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And particularly, the research shows that when it comes to sexual assaults, it all ramps up, right? So whatever your misdemeanor was, 3 years later is a felony, and it gets worse and worse and worse. So, okay. Any other, Commissioner Schwartz, did you want to jump in again?
No, I'm ready. I'm happy to make the motion to approve if you'd
I was
like.
about to ask for one. Anyone else before we do that? Okay, excellent. Is there a motion to move the resolution? There you go. There is. Second. Second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. We have at least an abstention, 2 abstentions. Anyone else? Excellent. Thank you all. I'm sorry, I thought we just did vote. Oh, all in favor? Yes, I think we did. We have 2 abstentions. Okay, no, it's okay. It's all right. Well, I know, it's already been a long day. Monday at 12:15. Okay, let's move on to the finance report with Jai Patel.
Good afternoon. I'll be very brief. May year-to-date financial performance for transit was we had $2.65 billion in revenue. We spent $4.2 billion, resulting in a net operating loss of $1.55 billion. April year-to-date ridership results were 1.1 million trips below budget, or 1.1%. Farebox revenue was 1.5 million, or 0.1% above budget. The non-reimbursable expenses for April year-to-date were under budget by 21 million, or 0.7%. On the MTA bus finance side, the average weekday ridership for the 12 months ending April 2019 was 0.7% lower than April 2018. Farebox revenue was 4.9 million, or 6.7% below budget, and the operating expenses were below budget by 3.4%. That concludes my report.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, let's move on to the capital program.
Good afternoon. In May, the 9 projects were awarded totaling $121 million. This includes 1 station renewal projects and 3 station component projects. They also include the structural repair for the White Plains Road. These are the column base, and the roof replacement of the Queens Depot bus depot. In May, we also completed 13 projects for $119 million. This includes the mainland track replacement, and there are 7 small business mentoring program, including 1 Sandy projects. That concludes the capital projects.
Thank you so much. Questions or comments?
This mentions procurement of the R179s. I'm just wondering if we could get a status update. How are they doing? Are we getting more of them? Was the retrofit done?
Okay. So by retrofit, you mean with the problem we found with the side impact pillars? We have a meeting with them, a conference call with them this week, where we should hear what the recommended course of action is, because they needed 2 more weeks, two weeks ago, in order to look at what the probably non-intrusive fix is, or certainly having a look to see what statistical sampling they need to do, how many units do you need to check in order to make sure that the fix will work. But in the meantime, production has resumed. They're using a different welding technique. They're getting on with it. They're populating the workstations. The units themselves are performing well, and so the production line is well underway again, and they're working their way through the inventory list.
If it's determined by Bombardier that the fix is working, does that mean taking the cars that are now in service that have not been fixed yet back to Bombardier for that fix?
I think they we'll know the answer to that better once we've had the discussion with Bombardier, but I don't think it will require taking them away. Certainly units would have to be checked overnight, but it's I'd have to come back to you on that once we know specifically what exactly needs to be done. Is it a visual inspection? Can it be done with ultrasonics? Do you have to be intrusive? In other words, do you actually have to do destructive testing? We will know that imminently.
Thanks.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to our special presentation on the L project update. I will just reiterate, let's move quickly. Let's be respectful of everyone's time if we can.
Chair, I'll do it in 1 minute because it's basically good news, and Jano's here with me. So there's, as ever, 2 elements to this. There's the construction and there's the alternate service plan. So with the construction, we're on schedule. In fact, thanks to Jano's efforts and the team's efforts, we're ahead of schedule on a number of the items, including track work. The demolition is virtually all complete in the first tunnel. The air monitoring has not raised any issues whatsoever to date. We are testing for dust and silica, and that has not reached any levels that would create a public health issue. We continue, though, to give the public reassurance. We continue to put such data on a weekly basis. It gets updated on our website so that you can see real-time, full transparency, what we're finding. There will be a more wholesome report on Wednesday at the board, but in the meantime, again, credit to my group station managers and to the other people involved, the train service managers and the rail control center. The work to keep the service moving has gone extremely well. So I'm not going to run through the presentation. We'll have that for Wednesday, and questions obviously would be welcome. But so far, so good.
Excellent. Jano, any comments?
I think there may be some logistical question. There is the presentation of the independent consultant hired by the board to monitor performance both on the service side and the construction side. They're here to give that report.
Yeah, I thought we were actually going to hear that.
I think
yeah.
So there is Wayne. Go take it away.
Hi, Wayne. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Feinberg.
Thank you. Do you need anything? You take it away.
I can go. Thank you very
Excellent.
much, Chair Feinberg. Good afternoon. I am Wayne Faulkner, Project Manager for JMT. JMT is the board's consultant on the Canarsie Tunnel project. I'm here today to report our observations and findings to date on the Canarsie Tunnel project. JMT was engaged by the MTA to act as the board's independent consultant to review and report on the following items: the coordination of the L train reconstruction efforts with the ongoing train passenger service, to review and report on schedule compliance, and to review the safety and environmental considerations regarding the bench wall demolition, debris management, and removal. JMT reports directly to the chairman and to the board. As a summary, JMT has observed the return to service has been consistently made ahead of schedule. The project is approximately 1 month ahead of the plan on critical activities in the Q2 tunnel, and the dust and silica levels are within tolerance. We will discuss our observations and findings on each of these items further in the presentation. We performed periodic field reviews of the work activities and physical conditions in the tunnel during nighttime and weekend work operations. We have been on site each weekend outage since April 26th and on site for periodic weekday night outages. Prior to entering the tunnel, We reviewed the project's accident program and hazard communication plan, reviewed the project's dust control and monitoring plan, attended the weekly pre-GEO meetings, and reviewed the GEO package. During the weekend and select weeknight outages, we've observed the following activities: tie-in rail replacement and plate replacement, bench wall manhole modification, the Con Edison duct bank demolition and restoration of the wall, cable junction box and bracket installation, work site dust management practices, the GEO closeout, which included the final cleanup, running of the test train, and return to service. Our team has been on site during select times over the weekend track outages on Saturdays, Sundays, and Mondays. I have several slides here of photographs taken during our field observations that I wish to share with you. First of all, this slide shows you the rail, tie, and plate replacement along with the third rail shield replacement. You'll see on the left-hand side the new ties and the new rail shield, and on the right-hand side, excuse me, gentleman cutting a rail for rail replacement. We observed the shaving of the bench wall around the manholes in the tunnel, which will allow for greater car clearance once the manholes are removed and the FRP shells are installed. Level 3 dust control measures were employed in cutting these manholes, shaving these manholes, which basically means they use water at the demolition tool source. So on the left-hand side, you see the manhole with the bench wall shaved around it, and on the right-hand side, you see a photograph of workers actually breaking off the concrete and hosing it down with water to keep the dust down. We observed the management and implementation and effectiveness of dust control plan, and measures throughout the tunnel work areas. Hay bales, as commonly used, are placed in the track drain to filter out the dust and debris sediment from the wash water. And you can see them in the photographs in the track drain filtering the wash water. We observed the concrete demolition practices and dust control measures during the demolition of the Con Edison duct bank demolition. The abandoned duct bank runs from fan plant to fan plant from Avenue D to North 7th Avenue. It requires removal to increase clearance on the bench wall for emergency egress, and it was removed with concrete breakers, jackhammers, and sledgehammers. The demolition was completed inside a mobile containment structure mounted to two work train flat cars using HEPA filters and a containment enclosure. The containment was fed with fresh air by an intake fan and was filtered with 2 to 4 exhaust fans into cloth filter socks that were changed periodically as they became filled. The dust levels were continuously monitored by the contractor and the construction manager inside the containment. Plastic sheeting was secured to the flat car and to the tunnel ceiling. Plywood bridging was supplemented with plastic on the bench wall, allowed workers access to the duct bank. The duct bank debris was removed and shoveled into bags immediately as it was removed from the wall. So on the photographs, the two photographs on the left, you see the actual filter socks on the exhaust side of the containment. You can see the containment nailed to the tunnel roof. And the other 3 photographs are of workers inside the containment removing the duct bank. After the demolition, the inner wall of the tunnel where the duct bank was located and where it was removed was restored with a smooth surface of a coating of mortar. You can see on the left-hand side the rough surface and workers mixing mortar, and on the right-hand side you can see the actual finished product. We also observed the installation of cable mounting brackets and the installation of the communication cables, and these 2 photographs demonstrate that on both the outer wall on the left-hand side and on the inner wall on the right-hand side. At the end of the weekend track outages, we observed the cleanup operation prior to return to service. This consisted of workers sweeping and cleaning the track drain trench of sediment, construction debris, and trash. The debris was bagged and placed on work trains for disposal off-site. You can see on the right-hand side a gentleman washing debris into the track drain to be shoveled out, and on the right-hand side a work train exiting the Bedford station with the debris bagged on it. We witnessed the effective transition between nighttime and weekend construction activities and on-time return to service of passenger train operations. Safe return to service was consistently made without incident or delay during each of the weekend and weeknight GEOs that we were present. JMT has been on site and observed the implementation of the approved dust control management plan. We reviewed the available dust data, which demonstrates the compliance in public areas. The compliance was ensured through on-site monitoring and strict observance of control points established for the project. Mitigation, when required, was implemented quickly. Laboratory data confirms the silica levels in the public areas have frequently been less than the limit of detection and well below the established public health threshold. We've concluded that the contractors developed a robust, effective dust control plan, and is effective based upon our site observations and review of the available data. The dust and debris cleanup practices that we have witnessed in the field are effective, and the dust levels and diesel emissions are controlled within the program tolerances during the GEOs and return to service. The construction management team should continue to reinforce the dust management protocols. Return to service is consistently made early without incident or delay after weekend outages, with the contractor's cleanup crews facilitating successful return to service. We have also examined the design calculations and shop drawings for the fiber reinforced polymer slated to be installed over the bench walls. This is the shell that will be mounted over the bench wall in the areas where the bench wall is in poor condition, negating the need for demolition of the bench wall. This includes approximately 2,000 linear feet of bench wall in the middle of the tunnels in both tubes, and includes areas throughout the tunnel where the manholes will be removed. We've reviewed the design and the fiber reinforced polymer material provided by the tunnel designer. The FRP shells will be installed in the Manhattan-bound tunnel Q2 starting in July. The FRP material consists of a half-inch thick glass fiber matrix impregnated with phenolic resin. The FRP shell meets the project design requirements, which include a uniform live load of 150 pounds per square foot on the walking surface. Now, this is an industrial level live load. Typically in a commercial building, you'll have about 100 pounds per square foot. It also can resist a 500 pound per lineal foot load at mid-height, which accounts for if the bench wall were to fail against it. And it passes the stress analysis for both of those load cases. And it also passes the deflection, both horizontal and vertical, for the deflection requirements to maintain car clearance. It also passes the requirements of the NFPA 130 fire code for both smoke and combustibility. And we estimate that it has approximately a 100-year design life. In March, we witnessed the test fitting of 4 test shells. In the photograph is one of the 4 test sections that we observed. The production panels will be installed in the tunnel beginning in July. We have reviewed the draft construction schedule and concluded that the project is approximately 1 month ahead of plan based upon our discussions with the project construction management staff. The critical path, which is track work, that's a critical task, is proceeding ahead of plan. And the major concrete demolition activities are pretty much complete in Q2, which is the removal of the duct bank. In the future, we will continue to observe the work operations in both tunnels, continue to review the field compliance with the project accident plan and hazard communication plan, and the dust control and monitoring plan as necessary, reviewing the raw data, dust data and reports. We will review plans and protocols as they are updated. We'll continue to review the construction schedule and observe the FRP installation.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Any questions or comments for, go ahead, Commissioner Albert.
Where is the debris carted off to? Where is it?
I do not know. I think that that would be a question for the for Jano possibly.
The Linden Yard. Yeah, it's carted out by the work trains and disposed of in the yard. One of the advantages of the approach that was taken when the project adjusted means and methods was you didn't have to take all that huge amount of debris out through the Avenue A exit.
Are we talking the East New York yard or the 38th Street yard? Or?
I think primarily Linden Yard.
Linden yard.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
As a former naysayer who had significant concerns about this, I have to say that this is a very good report, and I'm very happy to see it. And especially that it's ahead of schedule. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you so much, Mr. Faulkner.
Thank you.
Okay, let's turn to Steve Plachaki for the procurement package.
Good afternoon. I'll work through this quickly. The procurement package representing New York City transit procurements includes 11 actions, totaling an estimated $108 million in expenditures. I'll just highlight briefly 2 procurements in this month's agenda. The first is for the approval of a budget adjustment for an additional $100 million to 8 indefinite quantity consultant contracts for architectural engineering, design services, and support of miscellaneous MTA-funded construction projects. These 8 competitively awarded contracts form a pool of pre-qualified design teams through which individually funded task orders for various projects are competed to provide required design services. This budget adjustment will cover the additional capacity needed due to unprecedented demands associated with several high-profile initiatives under Fast Forward program, including station accessibility and CBTC traction power, as well as critical initiatives that were not anticipated when the original series of contracts were first awarded. The additional approval will provide the capacity necessary to permit the continued use of the competitive contracts until the expiration in October 2020. And all future work issued under these contracts will be performed at the currently the competitively negotiated contract rates. The next item is for the ratification of a modification to a contract that was awarded to Sistra Engineering Incorporated, pursuant to a declaration of an immediate operating need, again in support of Fast Forward. This modification includes services for design, procurement, and construction support for communication-based train control and auxiliary wayside signaling systems for the Queens Boulevard Line East that has a duration of about 45 months. Sistra was unanimously recommended for award of the base contract for QBL West, and their performance on the project has been marked by strong project team with a high degree of expertise in the areas of management, engineering, signaling, and CBTC design. Based on Sistra's knowledge and performance of the base contract for the base contract QBL West, it was recommended that the balance of the QBL line in Queens, which is a direct extension of the limits for QBL West, be handled as a modification to the Sistra base contract as opposed to a new competitive procurement. It was determined that Sistra was strategically positioned to provide the most advantageous and cost-effective design to meet a very aggressive schedule for QBL East. The agreed-upon price of $7,480,944 is based on the previously negotiated terms and conditions, labor rates, overhead, and fee of the base contract and has been determined to be fair and reasonable. I request for your approval of all items in this month's package.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments? Commissioner Vanderpool.
Not related to the 2 procurements that you highlighted, but part of the package. The RFP, the resolution to authorize the RFP for the, to proceed with an RFP process for the all-electric buses. When are we going to get an update on the Proterra and the New Flyer pilot?
I think those pilots were briefed in CPOC, if I'm not mistaken, but Craig, do you want to try and take that?
Sure. Yeah, that was part of our January update on the fleet plan, but I'll be happy to share that in more detail with you. Sure.
Commissioner Schwartz.
Thank you. Steve, I just want to make sure, excuse me, every time I hear the word design, I just want to make sure that we're in compliance with the statute and what was adopted in the April state budget in terms of design build. So and hopefully when we get to an executive summary format, you'll make it clear in all our procurement items. Just tell us how this is in compliance with the statute.
Yeah. Instead, we utilize these contracts not to fully design the procurements as we would have in a design, bid, build arena. We utilize these contracts, one, to just advance the design to maybe like a 20 or 30% in order to facilitate a design build approach. The contractors or the consultants also stay on board as the contractor starts, or the design build contractor engages, so that they can help and assist and be sort of some of our arms and legs and expertise in terms of looking and turning around those design build documents faster.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, is there a motion to move the procurement package? In a second? Great. All in favor? Abstentions? Good. Okay, it's passed. Let's oh yeah, right, I'm sorry. Okay. Let's move to Glenn London to talk about the fall subway schedule changes.
Thank you. The changes in the schedules on the 3, 4, and 5 move the transition to the overnight service pattern less than an hour earlier to accommodate ongoing SAP and maintenance work. These changes already occur most evenings due to the ongoing work. Putting these changes into the base timetables is more efficient and less costly and allows our customers to plan ahead with a more stable and reliable schedule. Thank you.
Commissioner Albert.
I understand this completely. My question is there a determination that when this work is finished, the current schedule would resume?
I think we will see that when the work is finished, but that is still ongoing for quite some time.
I might just add to that, Commissioner. I see no reason why we wouldn't revert back. The whole point of this is, as we said in the discussion earlier, to get work done quickly that needs to be done to create a better transit system for the future. Once we're done with it, I'll be looking to add that service back and enhance it.
Look, if there's something we've learned from the work that's happened at Penn Station, the L Tunnel stuff, the more we communicate aggressively with the ridership, folks are adults. They understand that we have to make service changes and do this kind of maintenance. So I feel like when we are smart and aggressive and lean into our communications to make sure that people understand what's about to happen and the signage isn't confusing and you don't have to stand in front of it for trying to figure out what the hell's happening with your schedule, we are in a much better place. So if we can just make sure that when we're making these changes, we're communicating them really clearly so that people can plan, I think we're going to be fine.
And the reasoning behind the change.
Right. Any other questions or comments? Okay, let's go to our MTA bus service changes. Mark.
Good afternoon. Briefly, MTA bus has one service change, which is a minor revision to the southbound travel path of the Q10 to better serve a bus stop with an accessible sidewalk and avoid traffic delays. The details of which can be found on page 198 of your committee books.
Thank
that
you.
ends the service change section
Thank
of
you,
the
sir.
agenda.
Questions or comments? Okay, let's go back to Andy for the standard follow-up reports.
Sure, very briefly, there's 4 reports, standard reports in the book. You can find them contained therein. They're the monthly MetroCard, the quarterly EEO and diversity, the quarterly transit recidivism report, very topical, and the quarterly fare evasion report. They're all in the book, Chair.
Excellent. Questions or comments on the follow-up reports? Commissioner Metzger.
Just to reiterate the importance of your board resolution, I'd like to point out that there were 67 recidivist arrests in the first quarter, and 23 of those were for sexual offenses.
Thank you very much. Questions or comments? Any final questions regarding the Transit and Bus Committee agenda? Is there a motion to adjourn? So moved. Second. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Great.
And thank you, everybody. Thank you.